Welcome to Ad Continues episode 295. That is a big number. 295 coming at you right now.
How did you make it this far?
295. This is a weekly podcast up every Monday on adcontinues.com as an MP3. It goes up before that on youtube.com/adcontinues as a video where you see me, boom, wearing a blue shirt and having a blue mic. And I have my guest with me. Oh, first of all, my name is Stafa for those of you who don't know who it is, but most of you know who it is because you have been watching Ad Continues all your life, or at least for a while. And with me today, I have a guest, Brian.
Oh, I guess that's me.
Yes, I have Brian. He is a software engineer from work, AAA Game Studio.
Totally not easy to track down who we work for.
Yes. Yeah, just look up Brian, software engineer, and you'll totally find who this guy
exactly
is.
who I am.
So, yes, we're going to be talking about video games related topics, and specifically on this episode, we're going to be going over the rapid fire interview questions to introduce Brian to the show. After that, we are going to go over our main topic, which is monsters. Woo! Happy Halloween! It is the Undertaker coming in. He killed his brother Kane. How's my Paul Bear impression? Is it spot on?
If I watched it, I would know.
Oh, it's from the old WWF days.
I've never seen any of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is he's basically like a ghost voice, so that's why I transitioned to him. So yeah, after we have our main topic on monsters, we're gonna have a quick announcement, and after that we have some news topics to talk about as well. And yeah, but before we get going, I just want to do a quick disclaimer that all opinions expressed on the show are of our own and not of our employers, past, present, or future.
What? I would never leave our current company. What are you talking about?
Well, maybe the company might leave you. Who knows? Who knows? The state of the video game industry is shaky. So, anyways, yeah, let's get into the rapid fire interview questions. And to remind the listeners what the rapid fire interview questions are, because we don't do them every week, they might forget. The rapid fire interview questions are 5 questions I give to each new guest that comes onto the show, just to like introduce them to the listeners and get them to know, what the guest's gaming experiences and all that is like. So, are you ready? You have not looked at these 5 questions at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
I don't know what this is right here.
You have not prepared any answers for yourself. So let's get going. And question number 1: what's your all-time favorite console? PC does not count as a console.
Why not?
Because it's not a console.
It's a platform.
It's a platform, not a console.
No, I love the openness of PC, but consoles, they go way back. I've only actually owned a couple consoles, and I'd honestly probably pick my favorite as one that I did not own as a kid, and that would be the PlayStation 2.
Oh, that was a good one. There was a ton of games on that.
I feel like it's a little bit of a cop-out for that reason, but no, as a kid, I was always excited to play games on the PS2 with my friends, like Twisted Metal, this Fantastic Four game. So I would have to go hang out with my friends to be able to play these games. So it's something I always look forward to.
Nice. Question number 2. Name 3 of your favorite franchises or IPs or whatever. I should rename that question as 3 of your favorite IPs.
I feel like some of these don't hold up as well these days, but Resident Evil is probably one of my favorites, especially for going way back. I loved playing Resident Evil 4. Miss playing the Tony Hawk in the good old days. Need a good Tony Hawk game, man. What happened to that series?
What did happen to that series?
What happened to that series? And then Devil May Cry, which I feel like it's cheating picking that because it's kind of a spin-off of Resident Evil. A little bit.
Well, just real quick, not to like go off into like a tangent or anything, but what's your opinion on the latest Devil May Cry game, the DMC Devil May Cry?
I actually really enjoyed it, and considering I haven't
there we go, boom,
haven't completed any of the previous ones, I appreciated finally being able to beat one.
I loved that game, and I just feel like people who complain about that game are just angry that they changed Dante, who is like never really a great character to begin with. So
I want to go back and play it a second time. It needs more appreciation.
Yeah, that was a really good game. They should just make a DMC Devil May Cry 2. Anyways, question number 3. If you could have lunch with anyone in the video game industry other than Staffa, who would it be?
Well, I haven't actually had lunch with you before. What is with that?
Well, I'm sorry. My lunch break is at noon every day. You can have lunch with me anytime.
Oh, well, we'll have to make that happen. I feel like Tim Sweeney, I guess.
Tim Sweeney.
You know who that
is?
Of
Epic Games.
Of Epic Games.
Well, you are a software engineer, and he is one too, so that is completely understandable.
Hey, no, actually, going back, I don't know if you've heard of ZZT.
EZT? What's EZT?
ZZT.
Oh, ZZT? No.
It's a game and level game editor. It goes back to 92, so it allows pretty much anyone to make games. Has a simple object-oriented scripting language. So also one of the cool things though is that any game or level that you played, you can actually go in and edit everything and see how it was made. So I feel like it was kind of it was a precursor to the Unreal Engine of today, sort of. But I still liked its openness of being able to edit and see how everything was programmed. It was really cool. I'd love to see something like that on a modern engine. That would be fucking. Excuse me for the choke there. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. So next question. What's one problem with the video game industry today? And the main reason why I ask this question is because we are fans of video games. We're enthusiastic about video games, but we are able to put our enthusiasm aside and point out that there's an issue here or there. So I know there's probably a ton of issues that you can probably point out, but what's one that you can?
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
Oh, damn it. Microtransactions. Just how games seem to be having the fun stripped out of them and the being sold to them piecemeal. Well, hopefully there's something fun, but some games, even with microtransactions, there's not really any fun there, but they're I
totally understand. It feels like you're not really buying a product or more of a service at this point.
Games are definitely becoming a service.
Yeah. That's totally understandable. And final question. Hold on to your pants.
Pants or chair?
Yes. One reason why you game.
Escaping to other realms, just the environments, the arts. I just actually love the technology. Like I have bought games just to look at the graphics. I know that's terrible to some people, but no, I love looking at the graphics of games and looking at all the technology that's involved there. It's just amazing how far games have come, but just escaping from my reality and not thinking about anything else except for just that world I'm experiencing. Oh.
All right. Well, you just got through the rapid fire interview questions. How do you feel? Are you a man now?
Only after these questions.
All right. Good. All right. So let's just a quick reminder for the listeners. If you yourself want to answer the rapid fire interview questions, not for Brian, but for yourself, the listener, you can write in to podcast@advocatenews.com. Send us your your answers just for funsies. Be like, hey, these are my rapid fire interview questions. I totally answered these really quick. I did not take my time with answering these questions. So yeah, podcast@athkins.com. So let's move on, and let's talk about our main topic, which is monsters. Woo! So the way how I usually do, like our top 5, or well, this isn't necessarily our top 5 monsters. This is more just 5 notable monsters. But whenever we do a list on the show, we alternate our answers. So guest will do one answer, I'll do one answer, and we'll go back and forth. So since you're the guest, I'll give you the privilege to go first if you would like. Would you like to go first?
I can go first.
All right. So what is one monster that's on your list that you want to note?
It's actually a monster from Resident Evil 4. But I even just wanted to note, like, well, for me, it can also be hard to come up with a notable monster. I guess it depends on what you're looking for. Like, are you looking for something that mechanically has a lot of variety to it? Because even like in some games, even though they have some monsters, enemies, and bosses, there might not be that much interesting design behind it, but it could still be an interesting monster.
I'll bring the mic closer.
So,
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, there's no real rule to that, but yeah, up to you.
so I did have a hard time trying to narrow, because there are some really cool monsters, but one that stood out to me was this Gyarados from Resident Evil 4. None of you probably have any idea what that is. Have you even played Resident Evil 4?
I've played Resident Evil 4, but what's the Gyarados?
Gyarados has these 3 long spikes. It has its eyes sewn shut, and so it can only listen out for you. If you're making noise, it knows where you are, and it's going to come kill you. So if you just stay still and stay quiet, it's just turning around trying to listen for you. And then so when it does hear you and it knows that you're a threat, it comes lunging at you with its claws, trying to stab the heck out of you. If you time things correctly, like if there's a wall near you and he's lunging straight towards you, hopefully if you move out of the way quick enough, which with the Resident Evil 4 mechanics can be very hard to do, he'll get stuck into the wall.
Because we know Resident Evil 4 is all about the speed.
Oh, smooth gameplay mechanics. Yeah. You can strafe, right?
Yeah, totally. You could totally strafe.
Hopefully he'll get stuck in the wall instead of your chest cavity. And then he has a weak spot on his back that you can attack. There's this parasite that's controlling him. Because otherwise, if you just start attacking him while he's just in the middle of the floor, not stuck to anything, he can just turn around and start slashing you. So I just think it's some interesting variety there of trying to be quiet when you need to be quiet, and trying to strategize how you're choosing to approach him.
All right. That's definitely a good one to list off. Moving on to my pick. Are we moving on?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. All right. So my first pick is not really like one specific monster. This is more of a generalization. But this is the only one on my list that's more of a generalization. But I have orcs on my list because I really like killing orcs. They're an easy enemy to hate. It's not like zombies or they're just mindless and it's like, why do I hate zombies? Just because they want to kill me and because they're going off their instinct. Oh well, they're just dumb. Well, orcs are dumb too, but they're dumb in a funny way and always entertaining to see like different iterations of orcs. Like you have Shadow of Mordor, which like all the orcs have like a great personality, or you have games like Orcs Must Die, where the orcs are dumb and just it's really funny how dumb they are.
So they're like funny zombies.
Yeah, and
because they just want to kill you too, right?
Yeah, they want to kill you, but at least they have more of a motive as to why they want to kill you. Rather than zombies, it's like, oh, they're just going off their instinct. And it's like Nazis are also like an enemy. Well, they're not really a monster, but like they're an enemy type that they're too easy to hate. It's like, oh, they're hateful people that want to kill me. All right, whatever. But
easy excuse for violence.
yeah. So orcs, I think as far as like, a general enemy type that you go against in a game, I think they're one of the better ones just because they have more personality and they have more motive behind why they're trying to kill you. And there's all sorts of different types of orcs in video games. Like if you look at orcs in World of Warcraft, they're completely different from orcs in Shadow of Mordor. There's just all sorts of different types of orcs, and you see different iterations of orcs.
There's different types of zombies.
Yeah. I mean, like you have fast zombies and slow zombies.
You have zombies that explode, that spew vomit.
I mean, when you get so creative with zombies, at a certain point, you're like, are they even zombies? So I don't know. Like I think orcs are a really good enemy type, and yeah, orcs. So let's move on to the next one on your list.
I approached this very differently than you did, but so one reason that I think that, well, I'm not necessarily bringing up zombies, but zombies are an interesting choice to mow down because they're no longer a really living, thinking thing. So isn't it easier to kill a zombie and not feel bad about it at the end of the day?
Yeah.
When you kill an orc, it's another living, thinking, intelligent being that you're killing.
I mean, like there are some games that have like kind of tried they've tried making the player feel bad about killing zombies, like The Walking Dead, where it's like, oh, you're making friends with these people around you, and then oh, it's a zombie, and oh, you got to put it out of its misery now, and so yeah, I mean, like, but for the most part, like in the majority of games, zombies are nameless, faceless, like generic face, just dead face looking, and you have no attachment to them, so it's very easy for you to kill them. So yeah.
Like, yeah, when I was a kid, my mom didn't want me to play video games where I'm killing things. So it's, if you're trying to get a mom-approved video game, it's really easy to get one that has zombies if compared to anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
for that reason, I almost put my vote out for zombies if I was a kid.
Oh, okay. I mean, there are plenty of people that like zombies or fans of zombies, so I will not hate. I will disagree with them as far as them being a good enemy type, but I respect your opinion.
Hey, can I use that as a cop out? As a kid, that's what my answer would be. Zombies.
Zombies, yes. All right. So the next one, moving on. All right, next one I have on my list is good old Cyber Demon from Doom. Cyber Demon, like as far as game mechanics wise, he's not really interesting at all. I mean, he's tall, he has a rocket launcher, he shoots at you, he's big. There's nothing really interesting gameplay mechanics wise, but he's just very iconic. He's basically the face of the demons when it comes to the Doom series. I mean, he's much more iconic than the what's it, that big spider brain thing, which is the boss of Doom 2, or the Icon of Sin, which is basically just a wall that's protecting John Romero's dead face. So yeah, I mean, like Cyber Demon is basically the face of Doom. I mean, like the Doom guy doesn't even have his own face. So if there's like a mascot for Doom, it's basically Cyber Demon, and he has a very iconic look. Just a big 2-story tall demon that has a rocket launcher arm, and just really cool looking design. So that's why I think Cyber Demon is a noteworthy monster.
Just because he's really big, cool looking dude.
Yeah, just really
Badass
cool
dude.
looking. It's been in the Doom series for a long time, and who does not like Doom? Do you not like Doom? If you don't like Doom,
What is wrong with you?
What is wrong with you? Get out of my face.
And go play Doom.
Go play Doom. All right, next one on your list.
I feel like this one's maybe a little cliche because so many people love this enemy, but the Big Daddy from BioShock. I feel like when you first hear these things, you have no idea what it is. Or I mean, what is that? A whale?
Mhm.
Like you can hear them usually before you see them, moaning in the distance, or groaning. I don't know how you interpret their noise, but
Yeah, I'd say it's like a whalish sound. I would agree with you.
they have a bit of mystery to them. Like you're wondering, what the heck is this? Like, is it a monster? Is there a person in there doing all that moaning for some reason? Slow moving and slow moving until they see you and realize you're a threat
And then they glow red.
and get really angry.
Yep.
And charge at you with that big ass drill. Excuse me.
Yeah. Mr. Bubbles. Yeah. Mr. Bubbles, no. But who is the real monster? Is it the Big Daddy or is it you?
The player.
Until you play the Minerva's Den and you are the Big Daddy, then who is the real monster? You or you?
I gotta finish that game, BioShock 2. Oh man.
I haven't even played BioShock 2, but I played Minerva's Den. And did I just spoil something for you with that?
It was Minerva's Den. Is that DLC for the first
Yeah,
one?
the second one.
Oh. Wait, so you haven't played the second one, but you played the DLC?
Yeah, because like everyone's like, "Oh, this is really great DLC." I'm like, "Okay, I'll
okay.
play." And I didn't really have time to play BioShock 2. I mean, like, Minerva's Den's a standalone. It's not connected with BioShock 2.
Oh, okay.
And you play as a Big Daddy.
I haven't played that.
But yeah, I like me some Big Daddy as well. I would agree. In fact, I was thinking of adding Big Daddy to my list, but I didn't.
There's been a lot of real cool cosplays of that guy.
Because I knew you were gonna put Big Daddy on your list, so that's why.
You know me.
Yeah. So moving on. Oh, you have anything else you want to say about Big Daddy?
Yeah, I guess that's
all right. So next one I have on my list is the monster from the game called Papo EO. Well, it's the game. It's it's written out Papo, and then the and sign, yo, but it's pronounced Papo EO. It's like Portuguese for Papa and you, something like that. But anyways, so this game, it's an indie game, came out I think like 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. It's a very interesting game because basically the lead designer of the game basically he wanted to tell a story about his childhood in which his father is like abusive father who he come home drinking, and when he's drunk he was very abusive. And so basically throughout the game you're this little kid in this like imaginary world. Like in the very beginning of the game, it's basically tells you that you're in an imaginary world because like the kid is like inside a closet and is kind of hiding from his dad, and then you go inside like this imaginary world after that. So and then like you interact with like this crazy imaginary world with like buildings floating around and whatever, and then you come across this monster, this really big monster, and for the most part the monster is very lazy. sleeps around. Sometimes you're having fun with the monster. You can play ball with him and whatever. But then every once in a while, there's like this bottle that the monster will drink, and then he gets like molten hot, like just on fire, and then starts chasing you. So basically, it's telling a story about how there's some fun moments with the father, but then some really bad, nasty moments with the father when the father's drunk. And like if you still didn't pick that up by the end of the game, like you're riding an elevator-ish type. Well, it's like a floating platform. You're riding a floating platform with the monster at the very end, and then like the camera shifts away from the monster and then comes back, and the monster is like a dad.
Man, spoilers.
Well, it pretty much tries to nail that on the player, like just to let them know, yeah, this is about an abusive father. I mean, like right from the beginning, it tries to tell that, but in case you're not able to pick that up, it nails that home at the very end. But it's just very noteworthy. This monster is noteworthy because of the fact that they use the monster and the mechanics of either playing with it or like it sleeping around, you bounce on its belly, or it getting mad and chasing you, and they use that mechanics to tell the story of a father who when he's drunk, he's abusive. So I mean, the game it's kind of a broken game. There's a lot of glitches. It's not a very well refined game, but I feel like it's very it's worth checking out for the fact that it tells a unique story. So and because of that, I think the monster from Popo.io is a noteworthy monster.
Was it a PlayStation 3?
Yeah, it's PlayStation 3. It's on Steam as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think it's only on those two platforms. Yeah, and yeah, let's move on and talk about the next monster on your list.
Okay. Well, so I was thinking about other like monsters that are mechanically fun to play against. So I think I'm approaching these a little differently than you are, or at least you're getting some very different ideas. But large scale monsters that you have to really move about the level, move around the monsters that you're trying to evade big attacks, large attacks. There's monsters like this in Metroid Prime. One that stood out to me was from Devil May Cry, well, the recent one, DMC. The succubus. You're in this. I don't even know how to describe this anyway, but it's a very, very large hallway. You've got these platforms that are circling the monster that you can jump across from platform to platform. And the monster is being held up by these cables. He has some, I don't know, I think they might be life support cables, and then there's like a central thing holding up the backbone or that's supporting the monster from the ceiling. And so you're circling this thing, interacting with it. It's coming in, just closes on you when you're on one of these platforms, swiping at you, spewing vomit and stuff. So once you end up weakening it to a point, you end up getting an opening for being able to swing up and disconnect one of these life support systems cables. I think there's at least 3 or 4 of them. And then once you've kind of done enough damage to him and weakened him enough, you get to take some pot shots at his this mechanism holding him up to the ceiling. But just having this large scale environment where you're moving around a lot and trying to evade all these different types of attacks coming at you, it's really cool. So like when he does do the vomit spew, it covers the entire platform you're on. So if you don't move, you're pretty much guaranteed to die.
Yeah,
So,
I had to just look up a picture of it just so I can remind myself which enemy it was. And yeah, I totally remember that boss fight. I mean, all the boss fights were really good, but I remember that one was a pretty good boss fight.
so one reason why I kind of picked this one, like let's say over this plant thing from Metroid Prime, is that this guy's got a lot of personality. So he's a lot more interesting to interact with from beginning to end. But then the other interesting thing is at the end, spoilers, So even once you end up disconnecting him and you move on to the next section, just because he dropped down, you think, oh, you're done with him. No, he comes crashing through the floor, yanks you down, and you have another brief tangle with him. A lot more interesting than just a plant monster.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the next one.
Sure.
So the next monster on my list is the Colossus of Rhodes from God of War 2. And yes, I qualify this as a monster because it's a living statue. Therefore, it's a monster, right? Yeah. So Colossus of Rhodes is like the first boss fight in God of War 2. I mean, overall, I thought God of War 2 was an amazing game. I loved it from beginning to end. But the introduction level just really threw you in there, and just was just a huge spectacle, just very fantastic. Like right off the bat, Zeus like brings the Colossus of Rhodes to life. Colossus of Rhodes being like this giant statue of a Spartan, I suppose. And like he's like throughout the entire level, you see the Colossus of Rhodes like just wrecking havoc in the background, and sometimes he comes and sees you and he starts destroying the buildings around you and like tries smashing at you, and then like you get flung to a different area, so he doesn't know where you're at anymore because you're regular size and he's giant. So and then by the time you finally get to the end of the level, you're inside the Colossus of Rhodes and you're destroying them from the inside. Just overall, just a really awesome game. Awesome level. Just fighting this Colossus, not only from being chased by him throughout the entire level, but then you go inside him and start destroying him from the inside.
Say, how are you destroying the inside of a living statue?
Well, it's he's not like solid. It's like he's kind of like a building.
So you're like destroying supporting structure?
Yeah,
because he doesn't have internal organs.
It's kind of like the Statue of Liberty. I mean, you can go inside the Statue of Liberty. That it's it's a statue, but it's also like a building that you can like go inside. There's a stairwell in there, and then you go to the top of the Statue of Liberty and you can like see out the top. The Colossus of Rhodes is similar, where it's not like a solid statue. It's more like made out of plating and has like structural beams inside. So you go inside the statue and you're just destroying them from the inside, and you see like the magic that's like bringing them to life, and you're like trying to avoid getting shocked by the magic. And yeah, it was just overall like just an amazing first level, and just a very memorable monster from that series. God of War has just all sorts of amazing monsters and like gods and other fantasy creatures that you go against, but I think Colossus of Rhodes is the most memorable. So yeah, you can go on to your next one on your list, or a final one on your list.
Oh God, actually, character. Well, I was gonna say I had a hard time picking another one, only because I haven't played nearly as many games as I would want to. Kind of just want to close up by saying, like, I've played a number of shooters, so I'm kind of tired of monsters or bosses that are just basically bullet sponges. I do tend to prefer enemies and bosses that you're doing something else other than just having to attack them or shoot them.
Yeah,
it makes for a more interesting monster or boss.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's just way too many bullet sponging enemies and bosses, so it was really hard for me to pick one. Like, I have an enemy that I thought was noteworthy, but mechanically, I don't know how interesting they were to interact with, but GLaDOS from Portal.
Sure.
It was very different. I mean, considering
Wait, is GLaDOS the monster or is Chell the monster?
I think from GLaDOS's perspective, we know who the monster is. Anyway, no, she's got quite the personality. So she's more, and then she's like teasing you from the loudspeakers pretty much for the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's something that's unusual, is you interacting with your antagonist for the entire game. That's not something you normally see.
Yeah. And especially in the second game where she becomes a potato. And then she's like literally right next to you the entire time.
Quite a unique enemy, and even how you interact with it at the end. Like, this is a first person perspective game. It's not, well, it is a shooter, but it's more focusing on the puzzles and stuff.
I would definitely not qualify it as like a first person shooter. It's more of a puzzle game. But
yeah, so the interacting with her at the end, you're using your portals to try to redirect her attacks at her and stuff. It's a really unique boss fight and really unique enemy that I've ever experienced.
And like the interesting thing about like the second game is that Wheatley becomes the monster because absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like, especially like with him, it was instantly, like he instantly got corrupted by the power. And then it's like, which is the worst monster, Wheatley being corrupted or GLaDOS? So it's like, oh, GLaDOS is not as bad now.
Yeah, it's funny how perspective can flip things on their head.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's definitely a good noteworthy monster. Moving on. All right, so the last one on my list, and I know some people are going to say I'm also stretching the definition of monster a bit, but I feel like this character is a monster. This is Calypso from the Twisted Metal series, because I mean Calypso might look like a deformed man, but or like a burnt up man. Well, it depends on which version. Like the Twisted Metal Black is deformed, and the other versions are like a man that has like a burnt face. But he's definitely more than a man.
Is Calypso? He's the guy who sets all these guys up against each other.
Yes, he's the one who sets up the
mastermind.
Yes. So Calypso, I mean, Calypso is more like a genie than anything else, because I mean, when it comes to stories that involve a genie, usually the protagonist will make a wish, and then it's like, be careful what you wish for, and like the genie will give them like a literal interpretation of what they wish for, and they become they regret what they wish for. And Calypso is pretty much like that. He's like a genie who will give them a little literal interpretation of what they wish for, and ends up backfiring on them. And genies are, they're a form of a demon. Genies are jinn, and jinn are a type of demon. Demons are monsters. Calypso is a monster. And so I always thought he was a very interesting character, especially in Twisted Metal 2. Like, I loved all the endings because it was just so interesting seeing what he would do to the character, because you know what the character's motives are when you play them in the story mode, like especially like the beginning cutscene. Like it tells them tells the player what they want. Also at the time, like for Twisted Metal 2, back in those days, I would always like read through the pamphlet for the games. Whenever I'm not playing, I'd just read through, and it has like a little biography for every character, and it has like what they want. And then it's like you play the game with the character, and then you win, and then you see what they actually get, which is not really what they wanted, but is like a literal interpretation that backfires on them. And because of that, I always thought Calypso was a very entertaining character that made the Twisted Metal series very interesting. And that's why I think Calypso is a noteworthy monster in video games.
Say Twisted Metal, I've only played bits and pieces of with my friends, so I don't actually know that much. But so is that all of that conveyed through the campaign, or?
Yes, yeah, like in the campaign, like when you select a character, there's some cutscenes, like especially there's in the older ones there'd be like an intro cutscene and a ending cutscene. I don't know about the newer ones. I haven't played the newest one, but there's always like an intro and ending cutscene, and I just smacked the mic. I'm that good. But anyways, so once you beat the game, like the character goes up to Calypso and says, "This is what I want," and then he's like, "Oh, really? I'll give you that," and then they will get like something that backfires on them.
Apparently, I have to go back and play through the Twisted Metal campaigns, because I think I have Twisted Metal Black on the PS2 I bought a couple years ago.
Oh, Twisted Metal Black's pretty good. Yeah. I like that one. Like my favorites are Twisted Metal 2 and Twisted Metal Black. I haven't played the newest one. I heard it's all right. I know it didn't do too well, like as far as sales.
Yeah, I don't think I heard anything.
I think it's mainly because it's a car combat game, and we're in an era where car combat games are no longer that fun. I think now this is just my own theory, but I feel like the reason why car combat games did well in like early like PlayStation and N64 days was because at that time there weren't really good controls for first person shooters, like especially without having dual analog sticks. So the closest thing you can have to a first person shooter or any type of shooter would be a game that requires you to constantly be moving forward and you shoot as you move forward, just doing the most that you can with the controllers at the time, which that would be a car combat game. And now that we have once Halo came out and we had like dual analog sticks, that pretty much redefined what you can do with a shooter on console, and there was really no need for car combat games.
So you'd say the mechanics are dated.
Yes.
But so it's not quite a combat game, but what do you think of what's that soccer car driving game called?
Oh, Rocket League.
Rocket League. That's really popular.
Oh, yeah.
And it's you're still moving, driving a car, but you do have a lot more mobility with that car than you do with the cars in these older games. So it's like, do you think these combat car games could have a new, breathe into new life into them if they?
Possibly, I'm not sure. I think Rocket League falls under soccer more than it does a car combat game at this point. And like the thing is, like, there isn't really, as far as I know, there's no like soccer game where you're playing as one character. I mean, like the FIFA, you're playing as the entire team. There isn't like a soccer game where you're playing as one character in the team and you're doing like crazy flips and whatever, like running on the walls or whatever.
So Rocket League is the first game that's actually allowed you to play soccer.
Kind of. Well, it's like a more fantastical soccer because of the fact that you're like going on the walls and you're doing double jumps and flips and all sorts of stuff. So it's like more of a fantastical soccer where you're actually playing as just one character rather than the entire team. So I mean that's why I think Rocket League it separates itself from car combat games. And car combat games, I feel like they're dated because they're trying to be a deathmatch, a first person shooter deathmatch game. So, yeah, that's why I think the latest Twisted Metal didn't do well, and I don't think car combat games aren't going to do that well any longer.
I mean, if anything's to change, someone needs to innovate. Like something needs to change there for it to actually be good and compared to today's games.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even, again, I don't know what that would be, but like,
and like another thing is that a lot of there are a lot of first person shooters that have vehicles in them as well. So that also makes car combat games dated for the fact that, there's first person shooters with vehicles.
right. Like it's not like it's just vehicle combat or just first person shooter combat. It's
Yeah.
a mix of both. So it is providing variety.
Yeah. I mean, I would
But
like to check out the latest Twisted Metal game because I'd like to see, the cutscenes and see what Calypso does to all the players or all the characters, because I really like Calypso. He's a really cool character. I mean, like, I would recommend probably looking up this. I'm certain there's a YouTube video that has like every character's intro and ending cutscene, and you don't really need to play the rest of the game because the fact that you're getting like the whole story just from the intro and ending. But yeah,
just mentioning the first person shooters where you get to drive games. So that is funny that first person shooters these days are pushing more vehicular combat. So maybe Twisted Metal needs to go that route where you're not just stuck in the vehicle.
Yeah,
I don't know.
possibly. Yeah, I mean, I from what I've seen about the latest Twisted Metal game, I mean, I like I said, never played it, but from what I've seen, like they tried doing some stuff where like you stick your character's head out the car and then you have like a sniper rifle. I'm not really too sure about that stuff. It doesn't seem like they actually got the characters out of the vehicles though, but it seemed like they're trying to do something, and regardless, they obviously weren't successful with that game.
Clearly needs more variety because I mean, adding vehicular combat to a first-person shooter, it's not a first-person shooter at that point. But that's adding a new variety. Like we've had first-person shooters for how long, and so hey, they're not scared to add something that breaks that model.
Yeah,
for the sake of variety.
Yeah, but yeah, that's it with my list. I mean, Calypso being the last one. Listeners, give me 5 monsters. Send them to podcast@afkintees.com and list off 5 monsters that you think are noteworthy in video games.
And why?
And why, yes. 5 monsters. The Undertaker is not a monster. He's a demon.
How much wrestling did you watch as a kid?
Not a lot.
You just really took to the Undertaker.
Yeah, he's Paul Bearer is an iconic wrestling character.
I'm sorry, I'm not more familiar with your character, sir.
Well, I don't know what to say. Get out of my face. Get out of my face. All right. One thing that is not a monster but is definitely noteworthy.
What is that?
DreamHost. DreamHost is a web service that offers unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface. They're also optimized to use content managers such as WordPress and many more features. All that just for $7.95 a month.
Damn.
That's like the price of a Subway sandwich right there. Almost. Use the promo code out of continues, and that's one word, no spaces. It'll waive away the setup fee and get you a free domain registration. So you can have, I don't know, like top 5 monsters.xyz for free. So yeah, check that out if you want to make your monster website or your portfolio or whatever. That's what outofcontinues.com uses in its DreamHost. Solid web hosting. One quick announcement, and that is we can use some iTunes reviews. Please leave iTunes reviews. Like the last iTunes review we had was from 2014. It's almost
Damn,
2018. So please leave an iTunes review. It's one of the single most helpful thing you could do for the podcast, and that is leave a podcast review on iTunes. So if you use iTunes, if you have an iPhone, you probably have iTunes.
Do you use iTunes?
No, I don't. I don't have an iPhone.
Maybe all of your audience are Android users.
I think you can still use iTunes on Android, but I don't use iTunes. So if you
You
use
are
iTunes,
your own problem.
Yeah, if you I left myself a review. I can't keep writing more reviews. That's that's too much work to like make a new account. I think the accounts are tied to credit cards anyways, so I can't keep doing that. But anyways, leave a review, please. That's one of the single most helpful things you can do for the podcast. But if you can't leave a review for whatever reason, and there's plenty of reasons why you can't leave a review, it's totally understandable. You can still help out the podcast, and that is by sharing the podcast on social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever. Tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your friends. And if you don't like this podcast, tell an enemy. Tell someone you don't like. Tell them to check out this podcast. And it just helps the podcast grow. It makes the podcast more fun to do when I have more people listening. And when I have more people listening, there's more people who interact with the podcast, sending us emails or whatever. And when I have more interaction with the listeners, that gives me more incentive to keep doing the podcast. It makes it more fun. So yeah, it just helps everybody out.
Everybody help stuff out.
Yes. So yeah, you can do that, and I'd really appreciate that. But other than that, let's move on to the news. And I'm going to do so by screen sharing with that. There we go. Send to everybody. All right, so we have the news. First big news on here is Visceral is closing down. So Visceral Games, best known for the Dead Space games. Have you played Dead Space?
I've started to. I need to actually think. I put in time. I am really disappointed to hear about this happening. Dead Space. I like as someone who loves Resident Evil, especially Resident Evil 4. I'm told I have to play Dead Space. The fact that Visceral is no longer exists really saddens me.
Yeah, I mean, like I've played Dead Space 2, which I really liked. I didn't play Dead Space 1, and I played part of 3, and 3 was very glitchy. I did not finish it because I was trying to play it co-op with a friend, and it just kept on glitching with my friend. Like it kept on getting stuck when we are trying to run through an area that was like blowing up.
Was this shortly after launch or?
I know we got it. No, it was not shortly after launch. It was after there was like a humble EA Origin bundle, and if you pay a certain amount, you get like Dead Space 3. And so it was not after launch, or shortly after launch. But either way, yeah. So basically, what is going on here with Visceral Games is they're getting shut down. EA put out a statement that we have here on the screen. It goes on saying that let me get like a quote here, but basically they say that due to like the current environment. Well, let me try to find like a quote on here.
I wasn't sure if did they actually give a good reason for why they were closing them. To me, it kind of seemed like they didn't like the direction the game was going, and so to help cut wasted costs, they're just shutting down the studio because they're just like trying to save money. So it's not. It doesn't seem like there's actually good reason for closing the studio down. Like there's a lot of good talent there.
Yeah, there
It's
is a
just
lot of good
because of all
talent.
the money that
And
they cost them. They were just like, no, we can't work with you. I don't know.
well, they said that like hold on, I'm trying to find this. In its current form, it was shaping up to be a story-based linear adventure game. Throughout the development process, we have been testing the game concept with players, listening to feedback about what and how they want to play, and closely tracking fundamental shifts in the marketplace. It has become clear that to deliver an experience that players will want to come back to and enjoy for a long time to come, we need to pivot the design. We will maintain the stunning visuals, authenticity in the Star Wars universe, and focus on bringing a Star Wars story to life. Importantly, we are shifting the game to become a broader experience that allows for more variety and player agency, leaning into the capabilities of our Frostbite engine and remaining central elements of the game to give players a Star Wars adventure of greater depth and breadth to explore. So, I mean, like as they mentioned, like the marketplace, it seems like making a game that's a single player adventure that's similar to Uncharted, which it sounded like this game was originally going to be more like an Uncharted single player adventure game, especially with Amy Hennig being the lead, who has previously been working on the Uncharted games. So it sounds like for the amount of money that they're putting into the game, they don't think they're gonna get the proper amount of money back, with the current marketplace, and it sounds like, I mean, they didn't really say for certain, but it sounds like they're trying to make it more of a multiplayer focused game, because they said something that the players will want to come back to. So I mean, when it comes down to it, it sounds like a lot of it has to do with money.
Reddit would agree with you. I've seen a lot of comments being like, EA just seems like they want a game that can allow them to more easily make money.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, when was the last time that EA has made like a straight up single player game? And the last one I can think of, I mean, I might be wrong, but the last one I can think of is Mirror's Edge 2, and that did very poorly for them.
I think I would have been excited about that game, except I have no idea what happened to it.
Yeah, like Mirror's Edge 2 did very poorly for them, and a lot of fans were screaming for a sequel for Mirror's Edge, and because they're like, "Hey, give us another Mirror's Edge," and they finally did it, and it did very poorly for them. And at the end of the day, EA is a publicly shared company. They have their executives that they have to answer to, and at the end of the day, it comes down to money. And if they're not going to make X amount of money back when they're spending Y amount of money on developing the game, then they just can't do it.
So I feel like part of the problem there is there's just throwing money at the problem. So they could make a successful single player game, except they're just throwing a huge budget at it and hoping it turns out to be a good game. And then they wonder why they don't make their money back. It's like, I feel like they're getting ahead of themselves. Like, just because you throw money at it doesn't mean you're going to end up with a good game. And then like people do want single player games. People love single player games.
They do. But the thing is, like, it seems like, I mean, for a while now, it seems like the larger studios, larger publishers have been shifting away from single player campaigns because of the fact that the budgets for these games have been going up, and they're not able to find ways to make up for the extra costs, through season passes or microtransactions or whatever. With a single player game, what you buy is what you get, and they're unable to get additional money out of those games. It seems like a lot of single player games these days. I mean, we did get that new Uncharted game this year, which was basically like an expansion to Uncharted 4. And that was like a $40 game when it came out. But it seems like larger studios are shifting away from that. And I mean, we have Hellblade that came out this year, but that was made by a team of like 12 people.
Wow, that's a small team.
Yeah.
Actually, how did it end up doing?
I think it did well, but it was developed by Ninja Theory, which is the developer that made DMC Devil May Cry. Yeah, and it looks really good. I still haven't picked it up yet. I want to pick it up, but I just haven't had time. I'm afraid of buying it and then not playing it for like 6 months. So
that's very likely to happen for me.
That's the thing with me. Like, I don't want to buy it right now and then not play it until 6 months later. So, I mean, I'd like to play it. I'd like to buy it. I'd like to support them because it looks really cool and it got good reviews. But it seems like it's coming down to smaller studios making games like that. I mean, if you look at other single player games, you have like The Witcher 3, which is a huge game. And, it's not like Uncharted where it's like a single player linear adventure. It's an open world.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I was thinking about just Uncharted as a good example. But you know what? Witcher is a perfect example because of all of the money that needs to go into creating those assets. Like, that's got to be an expensive game to make, but I mean, the team in Poland, do you know how big the team was?
I'm not sure how big the team is, but I know they're an independent studio and they're not. I mean, they're a bigger independent studio.
Like, if EA is worried about making money off single player games, like, look at how wildly successful The Witcher 3 is doing. Mm-hmm. That's amazing how well it's doing. The scale of it is crazy with what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah, but I mean, EA also released that Mass Effect game this year, and it did poorly. So, I mean, like that Mass Effect game that came out this year though is I mean, it's not open world, but it's open, unlike Uncharted, which is like a linear, just go through the game.
So you don't know what studio released or worked on Mass Effect, did you? Andromeda,
it was,
right?
It was it was BioWare that did it, and BioWare is EA.
As I was gonna say, so EA, they close a studio over an unreleased game, but they don't close a studio over a released failed game. That seems backwards.
It seems like they. I mean, I'm not really too
BioWare.
Sure. Yeah. So
well. I don't even know. Do you know what BioWare released before Andromeda?
I want to say Dragon Age.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Which I think that one did well. The last one did well.
So I guess even good studios can make mistakes.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring up with this whole closure is like there's been a lot of talks about Penny Arcade, because they put out a comic where like it just basically has Taicho's character, like 3 angry faces just going on, as you can see right there. Well, I'm not showing it on the screen right now, but I'm showing to Brian on my tablet. It's just 3 angry faces of Taicho going on about how the CEO of EA is a coward for not releasing the game. He uses the word cowardice for describing the CEO, and one of my friends on Facebook, who I'm not going to name drop, because like this guy, he's a fairly known game developer who is part of the IGDA, and he, people have attacked him over Gamergate. Um, so I'm not going to name drop him at all, but uh, he explained that this comic is very toxic. So I'm gonna like read off what he wrote. He says, seriously, if you think people didn't agonize over this decision, lose sleep, argue over and over, then you're out of your mind. Nobody loves games more than developers. If you've been in this kind of decision process, and it's never easy, it's never unanimous, and it's uh invariably gets messaged out differently than the actual reasoning. We don't owe you games. That's not how this works. Get over yourselves. He this friend who, on Facebook, he's in a higher position with some studio, or was in higher positions with some studios. He's moved around to different studios, but he's been through processes of discussing cancellations of games and things like that, and he's trying to point out, yeah, this is never an easy decision to do. And with Penny Arcade releasing this comic, they're basically encouraging gamers to say, "Yeah, you guys suck for canceling this game. Give us our game." And no one is really happy about a cancellation of a game, like especially the people who do the cancellation. That's the point he's trying to um, point out here.
Granted, I have no idea what the details of the project that they were working on. And yeah, the developers don't owe gamers games, but I mean, I feel like, gamers have been clamoring for certain types of Star Wars games for many years. Star Wars has been out for how long? Like, there is a clamoring for certain types of Star Wars games, and no one's releasing them. So it's like, there is money that people want to throw at a game, and there's no one making those games. And at the moment, I think EA is the only one who has the license to make Star Wars games.
Mm-hmm.
So they're practically wasting the license.
In a way, but like I mentioned before, they have to put in like so much money into this game, and if there's no way for them to get X amount of money back for how much they're spending on it, due to executive decisions, they can't pass the project. I mean, like, I know one of our coworkers. I'm not gonna say his whole name. Jose. He works close to you. Do you know which guy I'm talking about?
I don't actually.
Okay.
I don't know anyone.
He's like 2 bullpens away from you.
Oh.
But he worked on Disney Infinity, and he loved working on that project, but that got closed due to executive decisions. Basically, like, they put X amount of figurines on store shelves, and despite them selling really well, they did not sell out of those figurines. They still had figurines still on the store shelves. And because of that, Disney ended up canning the project. And he's our coworker, he's still kind of upset about the fact that that game ended up getting canceled, Disney Infinity 3.0 or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, when it comes to these larger studios, it's not up to the people that are actually working on the game, the developers, as to whether the game comes out or not. It comes down to the executives. I mean, like even our game. Well, I don't want to say like anything too specific, but you know, there's people above us that you know green light what we're doing.
So yeah, at the end of the day, we have no idea what all the reasoning is for why this happened. So
yeah,
we can only speculate.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds like they're gonna move it toward. I mean, it sounds like they're still gonna release the game, but it sounds like they're reworking it to be more multiplayer focused, I suppose. I mean, it says that they're gonna utilize the Frostbite engine, and Frostbite, you know, has been used with Battlefield.
That part confused me. So it's like, is the game currently not on the Frostbite engine, so they're throwing it out and going to redo it on the Frostbite
I think
I wasn't sure.
I think they are using the Frostbite engine, but it says like they're gonna utilize it better. So I mean, my guess is
probably more fully. So the game probably is only currently using a small subset of its functionality, and now they're going to try to use.
Yeah, and whether they're gonna delay the game and like really spend time reworking it, or if they're gonna like rush the game out, they have not really specified what exactly they're gonna do. They just said that they're gonna rework the game. So, yeah, I mean, like overall, I think the most devastating part about this news is the people losing their jobs. You know, with Visceral Games being closed out. I don't know. My guess is probably because they've been working on those Dead Space games, and the Dead Space games did not do as well as they wanted it to. And then, you know, this game looks like it's not going to be any different as far as the results go. I don't know. Personally, I mean, my opinion on like the whole Dead Space not taking off is I feel like EA tried to shove Dead Space down our throats too quickly and with too much. Because I mean, if you recall, there was more than just those 3 Dead Space games. There was like a Xbox Arcade hacking game. There was the rail shooter that was
On the
on the Wii.
I think I have that.
And then it came out on the PS3 with the what's it called, the PS Move or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, and you know, like they had comics. They had like I think 2 or 3 animated movies. They were on Netflix for a while. I mean, they had a lot. They were trying to make Dead Space a thing, but they were trying to do it too much too quickly.
Okay, so you think it is a matter of them doing too much too quickly. You don't think that it's just a small market to begin with, and they were hoping it is larger than it really is?
I think they were trying to hit the floor running with Dead Space rather than like slowly build it up to be, you know, something big. I mean, like,
okay, no, I think I can agree with that.
Comparing, I'm going to compare this to like the MCU and DC in their movies. Like the MCU, Marvel has been slowly putting out you know, their movies throughout. I think it's been 11 years since the first Iron Man movie. Like they've been slowly putting out these movies, and they're building up to get to the Infinity War movies. Compared to the DC and their movies, DC is like, all right, we got Batman. I mean, sorry, we got Superman. Now we got Batman versus Superman. Now let's get them together, Justice League, and wham, bam, kazam. It's like DC is trying to do too much too fast, you know, and I feel like that's how EA was with Dead Space, just doing too much too quickly rather than like slowly building up Dead Space. They're like, here's all the Dead Space.
That's probably a good conclusion to come to. Also, like I said before, they probably quickly try to throw money at a problem and hope.
Yeah.
So that's all kind of hand in hand there. Like it's probably more so that, yeah, they're trying to quickly make something awesome happen
Yeah.
without making sure they're going about it the correct way. And yeah, they're just really excited and jumpy.
Yeah. Like I don't want to assume anything with or assume too much with the decision process. I'm pretty sure like it was not an easy decision for them to conclude the closure of the studio and the reworking of the game. And I'm pretty sure that even the people who made the decision aren't really happy about the decision, but feel like that they have to do this due to money. So I don't know. Like it's overall, it doesn't sound like anyone's happy about this. I really doubt even the people who made the decision are happy about it. But at the same time, I don't want to like blame them and be like, hey, where's my Star Wars game I wanted? That's
exactly what I'm thinking. I'm sorry.
Where's my Star Wars 1313?
TIE Fighter is the best now.
Yeah. So moving on. Let's talk about Humble Bundle. They are now owned by IGN.
How did that happen? Or I didn't even realize Humble Bundle was looking. I guess they need funding for some reason.
Humble Bundle has been getting huge recently.
Yeah. So what do they need funding for?
Well, I guess IGN noticed how huge they were and were like, well, we need a piece of that. I know, like, for a while, I don't know if they were still doing this recently, but IGN was doing like this thing with premium members. They would get like a free game each month. I don't know how long they were doing that. I don't know if they still do that, but that might be tied to the decision to pick up Humble Bundle, because Humble Bundle has like their monthly subscription.
Yeah. If they were trying to do any type of game distribution and if their system's not that well developed, acquiring someone else who that's what they do seems like an interesting idea. It's like, is that all they're doing with it? Because
so
the
like
article says, like, so this is my concern, that by acquiring them, are they going to change the model at all, or are they going to leave them and let them develop on their own and continue doing what they're doing, or are they going to mess with it?
It sounds like they are still going to like be able to function on their own. Like they're not going to basically, but basically they're still going to have the same management as before, but now they're just owned under IGN. But it seems like people have been pointing out that we're already seeing the changes, because one thing that Humble Bundle has been advertising, like I've been seeing it on my Facebook feed, is pre-order Call of Duty World War II and get a free month of Humble Bundle subscription. And some people have been saying, oh, this is obviously IGN, because otherwise, like, how the heck did they like obtain that type of deal? Because Humble Bundle, yeah, they are like a digital store that have been getting larger titles on there, but for them to like have a deal with a game that's as large as Call of Duty, we can only assume that there might be some sort of connection that with IGN that was able to make this sort of deal. I'm not sure, for certain, but people are assuming that, especially like on the Facebook comments when I click on that the little advertisement that's showing up on my Facebook feed. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's IGN." So,
Yeah, I haven't read too much speculation on it, but yeah, I like Humble Bundle what they do. Hopefully they can keep on rocking what they're doing.
Yeah, like one thing that people are afraid of with this um this acquirement is that some of the like IGN reviewers might uh get some heat for putting out reviews that are being published by Humble Bundle, because Humble Bundle is not only a store, but they are also a publisher. Like there are games that they have published.
So I wasn't even aware of that. So like there are games that are only distributed on Humble Bundle, or
Yes.
wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So, um, I mean, IGN is pretty professional at a certain point. So I would like to imagine that they can draw the line between, um, their reviews and their deals or sponsors or whatever. I mean, like I feel like the a lot of reviewers have gotten better after the whole thing with like Jeff Gerstmann and what was that again? Not Hitman, but um that one Kane and Lynch. Yes. Are you familiar with that?
I've only heard about it, but not familiar with it.
So GameSpot like for the release of Kane and Lynch, the first Kane and Lynch game, um they had like a ton of advertisements like on the side of the screen. Like there's Kane on one side, Lynch on the other side of the website, and there's like a big banner on the top of the page saying Kane and Lynch. And Jeff Gerstmann, who was like their lead, like their editor in chief, he released a review saying that it was not a good game. He gave it a low score. He said it was not a good game. He was very unenthusiastic about it in the video review. Like it was up for like 2 days, and they pulled his review, or they pulled the video portion from his review, and the the ads for Kane and Lynch were also pulled from the website completely, and that led to everyone assuming that Square Enix, I think it was Square Enix that was publishing that game, but Square Enix like cut off their sponsorship due to the bad review, which eventually they revealed that yeah, that is the reason why he got laid off, and there's no more ads on the website for Kane Lynch because of his low review. And I feel like after that, the game industry has improved, or that's sorry, the game review industry has improved. And I'd like to imagine that IGN reviewers will be able to draw a line between, um, their reviews and anything that like Humble Bundle has to do. In fact, I'd imagine that maybe they won't even do reviews for games that are published by Humble Bundle, because that would be like a conflict of interest.
It seems like a big conflict of interest. I didn't even think about that until you brought it up.
So yeah, anything you want to add to that?
Nothing to add.
All right. Let's move on to the next thing over here. All right, let's talk about loot boxes. Yay! Everyone's favorite loot boxes. So, we have there was like I think this started from like a petition online to have loot boxes in video games um, be classified as gambling, because there's a lot of games now that have loot boxes. I think they got really popular with Overwatch. I mean, they've existed for a while, but they got very popular with Overwatch, where you can pay money for a loot box that will open and give you, certain in-game items, whether they're cosmetic or whatever.
Do you know if the implementation in Overwatch it is generally well liked across the board?
I know with Overwatch at least it's completely cosmetic, so it
Oh,
does
okay.
not affect the game at all. Like you can play without opening loot boxes. So it's completely cosmetic. Other games though, especially free to play games, they're more than cosmetic. I know with like Counter Strike Go, Global Offense, CS:GO, there are loot boxes. I believe they're all cosmetic, but the thing is, like, you can cash out with those because there are like third party websites that let you trade the item for real money.
Hmm.
And then like they end up trading it to other people who want to buy the item, which makes it completely different than the stuff in like Overwatch where um, it's you can't trade any of that and it's all cosmetic.
So do you know like why the news is coming up about this now? Since this mechanic's been around for a few years at least.
Well, I from the petition, I believe is because they they're saying that it's getting out of hand, like especially with it getting into single player games like Shadow of War,
Hmm.
and also it's it's showing up in games like the new Star Wars Battlefront. It's in the beta right now, and EA is like, oh, it's gonna change. It's not gonna be like this in the actual game. Um, so because it's showing up in more and more games now, people decide to make a petition. They got like 10,000 signatures, and um, I know basically, whoops, I know the ESRB, they recently responded to the controversy, stating that they do not consider loot boxes as gambling, and I'm pretty sure it's because of the fact that it doesn't deal with cashing out with money. And with PEGI, which is the European equivalent to ESRB, they said that they're leaving the verdict to the Gambling Commission, which the Gambling Commission will most likely say this is not gambling because of the fact that it does not deal with money. So the main concern with, um, like the petition is that uh, it's taking advantage of kids because kids are obviously it's illegal for a minor to gamble, and also it's taking advantage of adults that are prone to addictions like gambling, um, which I totally agree with because uh, these loot boxes and these systems, they're not designed by like just any any random game designer. Like a lot of these companies have they have psychologists on their staff to try to make these as addictive as possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. Like there's people who are well versed in like finances, who are basically even designing these around like the amount of money they want to make based on like the number of people are playing and how often to try to get them hooked. And it's a numbers game
Yeah, I mean, like I
too.
I went to uh Casual Connect, which is like a GDC for mobile games. And some of those talks that I attended, like they basically like talked about like, oh, what's the best ways to get your players to keep coming back? You know, like what are the best type of notifications to send out? What are the best type of rewards to give to like get your players to keep coming back? And like that was like one of the things that they like try to teach and during like their these sessions at Casual Connect is how to keep getting your customers to come back to your mobile game, because that's how mobile games make their money, you know, getting their customers to come back. So there's a science behind getting people to keep coming back, and they use this science to uh implement it like as the most addictive loot loot box, and um basically like the cards are stacked against um the actual consumer, like they're in favor towards the um the publishers because of the fact that they have scientists on board figuring out how to make the game as addictive as possible. um
Morally, it seems like a weird thing. It's like, yes, we don't want them taking advantage of people, but at the same time, like, does the company have the freedom to like do what they want here? It's not like it's their fault. Well, I
yeah
don't know. Like, well, yeah, I don't know.
um
I mean,
some
they are trying to take advantage of people, no doubt.
some arguments against this being gambling is that it's comparable to buying a pack of trading cards, whether it's
Yeah,
baseball cards or
yeah. It doesn't seem that different.
yeah, it's not that different because it's like, yeah, you might get something that's more rare, but at the same time, if you compare it to like trading cards or even Magic the Gathering cards, you can like trade those for something better. So you open up a pack that's not so good. Okay, I don't like uh, this pack of cards. I'll like sell them and get something else. With these digital games, you can't do that. Like, I mean, like that's one of the big differences between Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering on paper is that the cards you get in Hearthstone, you're basically stuck with those unless you dust them and then use the dust to get a better card, which isn't even 1-to-1 because the amount of dust you get for dusting a card is not the same amount for making that card.
So dusting is just like basically like breaking it down or recycling it, and that acts as a resource to get other cards.
Yes. So you're not trading cards in Hearthstone, but you are able to trade cards with Magic the Gathering, the paper form, because I mean, no one's going to stop you. So yeah, it is comparable, but at the same time, there are differences, and like this is overall a trend that I'm not liking in the game industry, the whole loot box thing. But at the same time, developers got to make their money.
Yeah. Like, as a gamer, I don't like games as a service. As a developer, I theoretically like the idea of it. Love the idea of it. Because yeah, we're all trying to live our lives, just continue making games, doing what we do, doing what we love to do. It's easier to do that if we have the money to
Yeah.
get, to live.
Yeah, and
Comfortably.
there's a lot of indie developers that are working on free to play games, like card games, and it's hard to have like a micro transaction system to make money with a card game outside of loot boxes or opening card packs, because that's basically the only way you're going to be making money with a card game is selling packs, which are basically loot boxes. So it comes down to like where you going to draw the line. I mean, are you going to not allow a card game to sell card packs? Because how is that card game going to exist without selling card packs? And if you're gonna allow a card game to do that, like why are you not gonna allow a single player game about killing orcs to do that? Like, where are you gonna draw the line? You get what I mean?
So I guess you did mention, right? So you can sell Magic cards, and then in the real world,
Yeah.
So those cards have a value. With loot boxes, generally, they don't have a value. But so you did mention there are some third-party markets where you can sell stuff.
Yeah, with like Counter-Strike Global Offense, there's a way to do that.
Then how
but
would
that it's like specifically for that game.
yeah? How would you feel about digital goods and games like loot boxes, like those items that you're getting, if you could actually sell them?
If you can actually sell them, I mean, then you're like treading close to gambling.
You think?
Yeah, because you can cash out. Because that's the thing about the difference between like a slot machine and or going to a casino playing poker and playing a video game that has no money involved as far as like winnings is the fact that you can cash out. And I think that's what draws a line between making it gambling and not gambling. I mean, I'm no lawyerologist, so I don't know all the fine details, but I'm pretty sure that's the main factor as to like what makes something considered as gambling is that you can cash out.
Well, it's just with loot boxes, are you actually, and if with the cash out option, can you actually lose? Like, because I mean, gambling, you can actually just keep losing money over and over again. Like with games, if you could sell, or like with Magic cards, are you, even by buying a booster pack, are you ever losing anything?
You're always losing.
Because I mean, like the value of the cards in the pack, are they generally like you wouldn't necessarily lose too much? Like even if you got like terrible cards, you'd still be able to sell them without much of a loss.
I suppose.
Like,
I mean, like
it does seem to be a gray line there.
I mean, it comes down to like what type of deck you're trying to make and which type of cards you want. It's like if you're getting like, well, I think a pack is you're guaranteed to get like a certain amount, like you're guaranteed to get like a certain type of card in it. Like there's your basic cards, your rares, your legendaries, and the legendaries obviously you're not guaranteed to get, but like a rare, I think each pack has at least like one rare or something like that. So a lot of these systems guarantee at least something in there, but regardless, it's like, okay, if you want a legendary card, you're not gonna always get it. If you're fishing for that legendary and you never get it, then you're definitely losing.
So I mean, then even like those real world systems seem a gray area. Like, why is that buying Magic booster packs not gambling?
Yeah. Well, comes down to what we're gonna allow the government to tell us what we can and can't do.
Yeah.
I don't want no government telling me what to do. But yeah,
complicated area.
Yep. So, do you have anything you want to add to this before we move on?
I think we should move on.
All right. Yeah. I think we're talking about stuff that we don't even know what we're talking about at this point. So let's talk about a good friend of the show, Mr. Philip Spencer. Which
great friend. We know him personally, right?
Yeah, like huge fan of the show, friend of the show. Philly S. BFFs of the show. So Phil Spencer mentioned that what is this? Oh, crossplay. So the crossplay between Xbox One and PS4, which he's been talking about for quite a while. He's been wanting it to happen. In fact, he said like recently, I think it was like 3 weeks ago or so, He said that they were in talks with Sony as far as like making it happen. He says that it's looking like it's likely not going to happen at this point. Quote, we talk to Sony all the time with Minecraft and PlayStation. We have to be one of the biggest games on their platform in terms of sales and gameplay. Same with Nintendo. The relationship with Nintendo on this front has been strong. They've been great supporters, and we continue to collaborate with them. But I think Sony's view is different. They should talk about what their view is. I have a real struggle making comments about their motivation or timelines. Uh, I know there is a certain view that says if my friends have this console, they can't play with people who buy another console. That's a reason they go buy my console, he said. The reason is not going to go away. So we're putting Minecraft out there as one of the biggest games on any platform and allowing people to play together regardless of what device they bought. I don't think everybody is taking that same approach to the ecosystem. So I'm never going to call anything a lost cause, but I think some of the fundamental reasons of certain scenarios, they're not really going away. So I don't know what would change. I think people look at crossplay and say it is better for gamers. If it's better for gamers, I have a hard time thinking why we shouldn't do this, especially when they're trying to make the gaming business bigger business. So yeah, I mean, like he really wants to make crossplay a thing, but it sounds like from what he's saying, at least Sony doesn't really want to do it with him.
I'm not even sure why Sony is worried about that. They said they're concerned for their users. What are they talking about? Like, are they?
Well, I probably from
Are they
their
looking down on the Microsoft audience? The people that own the consoles think they're just a bunch of like little twats.
Well,
who-
I think from their perspective is that they have the larger user base at this point. So when people are looking into buying a PS4 or Xbox One, they're like, "Oh, my friends are on PS4, so we're gonna continue playing. We're gonna buy a PS4 as well." So, um, they're afraid that once they have the cross-platform, people who are looking into buying PS4 or Xbox One, they're like, well, it doesn't matter what my friends are using because I could play with them regardless.
Hmm.
So that's probably what he's saying. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I think that everybody benefits from having cross-platform play except PlayStation would not benefit the most because they already have the biggest player base. They still benefit, but they would not benefit as much as anyone else. The gamers would benefit. Xbox would benefit. PlayStation would still benefit, but they would benefit the least because they already have the biggest player base.
So what you're making me realize is that I shouldn't be giving my money to Sony as using my money to vote, but unfortunately I already have a PS4. But yeah, I like the idea of crossplay, and I feel like if all of the console manufacturers are being selfish, then they would never allow that. So the fact that Sony is doing that is clearly because they want the people to stay on their platform.
Yeah.
Too late for me to not support Sony. Damn it.
Too late. Too bad. So sad. All right. Let's move on to Phil Spencer again. Phil Spencer, good friend of the show. BFF. We fist bump all the time. Even though we're not on video.
You should have a video overlay in the bottom.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that with Google Hangout. But anyways, so Phil Spencer, who I've mentioned on this podcast multiple times, that I really like him due to him being more making decisions that are better for the gamers, and like less greedy decisions that's just strictly better for the business. He says he does not like uh platform exclusive content like DLC that is exclusive to a platform. And I know Microsoft used to have like platform exclusive content for a long while on the 360. Like they would have like Call of Duty DLC show up a month before the other platforms, but now it's spun around onto Sony. Um, and but that was before Phil Spencer was the head of Xbox division. So he says, yeah, it's not like as far as PR, it's bad for him to say he doesn't like platform exclusive content because like as the head of Xbox, he's supposed to get the most for Xbox users. But he said, like, basically, he says that um, it doesn't help the gamers if it's like, oh, I can't play this content because it's not on my platform. And like the thing I like about Phil Spencer is that he doesn't care which platform a gamer has. He just wants all gamers to be happy. And I think that's why we at continues love Phil Spencer, because he is a gamer at heart.
Sounds like a great guy.
Yeah. Hey Phil, come onto the show. We always have a mic open for you.
Hey, we got one right here.
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, just as the title says, is a little ironic considering they're a smaller number of users, and yeah, they're not as big right now, or they certainly haven't gotten as much exclusive DLC. So yes, it's ironic because like if the tides were shifted, would they still be saying this? I doubt it, but
I don't know. I mean, like ever since Phil Spencer took over, like took Don Matrick's place, I feel like Phil Spencer has been doing a lot of stuff to get content into as many gamers' hands as possible. Like, Minecraft. They own Minecraft, but they still put it out on PlayStation and Nintendo hardware. And yeah, I mean, like, it's just overall, he seems like he wants to make gamers in general happy. Also, like he's been like ever since he took Don Matrick's place, a lot of Xbox One games have been showing up on PC now.
which I love that.
Yeah, PC mustard race. So I mean, if they were in the lead, I would like to say that Phil Spencer would still have the same mentality, because like overall, like so far I've been seeing what he's been saying and the decisions he's been making, and it seems like he has been more for making gamers happy rather than just business decisions.
It'd be nice if he had that stance on DLC and microtransactions.
Yeah. All right. Let's should we move on?
Sure.
All right. So the final thing we have on here is Sony. Sony unties. That's a really weird publishing label.
Say, that is actually, yeah, it's a new publishing label. Interesting.
Yeah. So they have a new publishing label from Sony Music, which is called Sony Unties. What do they untie? They untie the music. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
I'm just saying, a music company releasing and developing video games.
yeah, so Sony they have a new label called Untie, and they are publishing games Like one being a project called Tiny Metal. I don't, from what the screenshots, it does not look like Twisted Metal at all. But Tiny Metal, and the game is going to be on PC, PS4, and Nintendo's hybrid console, which I mean that's the Switch. Why they call it Nintendo's hybrid console? They just want to use extra words in this article. So yeah, it's going to be on the Switch.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So yeah, Sony is trying to get games on other consoles that aren't Microsoft consoles.
I was say, considering Sony's moves with exclusive DLC and whatnot, this is a surprising move.
Mm-hmm.
And no crossplay. So they're releasing their own game on all these other platforms and no crossplay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I do find this interesting. They're not doing crossplay. It doesn't seem like they're doing. They're not releasing the game on Microsoft consoles, aka the Xbox One or the Xbox One X. Yeah, I mean it's just interesting that they're doing it, especially with like the Sony music. I don't know.
I mean, yay for gamers.
Yeah. With this said, like, I mean, I've said this on the podcast multiple times. Like, I think Nintendo should start releasing games on other platforms other than their own because people love Nintendo games. But the thing is, like, their hardware, especially with the Wii U, hasn't been doing as well. But people just love Nintendo games. I love Nintendo games. I'm just not a fan of their hardware. I mean, with Sony and Microsoft releasing stuff on Nintendo platforms, maybe Nintendo should start doing it as well.
Say, I do like all the different things you can do with the Switch, but it's just all the kinds of games I like to play. There's not much of that exists on the Switch platform.
Yeah,
I appreciate Nintendo games, but I tend to play other types of games.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add with this article about the Unties, which is a weird name?
No, I love that they're doing that. It's just it feels again weird for them to do this while not doing other things. But I guess that's just because they're a giant company. So there's many, different companies underneath that company, and they each can operate in their own way, contradicting the other companies apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So that's basically it with the news. Let me put it back on our faces.
Oh no!
Hey!
Let me put back on my makeup.
Hey! Oh yeah, no makeup.
I need to freshen up.
I'm sorry. Let's redo your makeup. Let's start this all over. So, anyways, that's it as far as the news goes. Let's move on to the final segment, which is listener feedback. We have no listener feedback this week, just like last week. Or 2 weeks ago, since I didn't have a podcast last week. But if you want listener feedback to be read on the podcast next week, write into podcast@outofcontinues.com. Send us your questions, comments, feedback, questions about anything. Like if you have car problems, send me the question and I'll give you a really bad answer because I don't know anything about cars. Vroom, I know how to drive one. So, yeah. Other than that, let's wrap up the show. I want to give a shout out to everyone who is Halloweening this week. Halloween safe. Don't take any like candy apples that have razor blades stuck into them, because apparently that was a thing at some point.
Have you heard of Adam Ruins Everything?
Yes.
He now has a segment on that myth.
Oh,
urban myth. Well, I don't know if it's true, but if it's just an urban myth, then I guess there's never actually been a case of that happening. But
Oh,
I guess you'll have to watch his show to find out.
all right. There's a shout out to Adam Ruins Everything. Check out it's called Humor, right?
The college team. Well, I don't know
Or
if he's still on there, but Truth TV, is it?
I don't know.
Something. Anyway.
But yeah. Shout out to him. Shout out to all my homies. One love. And do you have any other shout outs other than Adam Ruins Anything?
No, that's a good one to end on. Halloween.
All right. Let's wrap things up. If you enjoy what we've been hearing, support us by liking us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, leave an iTunes review, subscribe to Google Play Music. You can contact by email at podcastadvocacy.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/adcontinues. All those things I just said, they can be found on the website. That's www.advocacy.com. You can give me a tweet. I am at Sayed Stafa. That's at SAYEDSTAFA. Probably not going to share your Twitter. Do you even have a Twitter?
I do.
We're not going to share it because I don't want your name to get out there. But if you want to, what's that?
Late Nightshade.
Oh,
Twitter.com.
Yeah. And with that said, I'd like to thank my guest hosts for joining me today, Brian.
If you hate me, please don't tell me because I will be crushed if I hear any critical feedback. Thank you.
If you hate
no,
Brian,
I love critical feedback, but I know I'm probably terrible.
If you hate Brian, then I hate you.
Oh, thank you, Steph.
And with that said, I'm your host, Stafa. I'll see you guys next week because I'm not gonna screw up and not do another podcast like I did last week. So I'll see you next week. And thank you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click here to subscribe. Click over Brian's face for the previous episode. And click over here for the episode before that.
Bye.